This situation keeps getting crazier as following a shocking report from Elliot Friedman revealing the wild truth behind Mitch Marner's future in Toronto. Mitch Marner has broken the silence himself following yesterday's brutal loss, and what he said has Leafs fans fired up. We're going to break that down, discuss what it means going forward, but before we get into it, quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. If you're part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Leafs content, so thank you guys for that. But Darius, a lot to go over today. Now, obviously, the Leafs are coming off of a pretty bad loss. That's now 3 losses in a row, but what took the headlines yesterday was Elliot Friedman and his report surrounding Mikko Rantanen and the Mitch Marner swap that we spoke about yesterday. But there's a lot more than that. And in case you missed it yesterday, we'll quickly go over it. Elliot Friedman came out and reported that the Hurricanes asked for Mitch Marner in return for Rantanen, and Brad Treliving, as a result, had to ask Mitch Marner if he would waive his no-move clause. And it tells us a lot about what he not only thinks about Mitch Marner's future here in Toronto and the chance of him signing an extension, but also I love that for Brad Treliving just to see what he can do, being open to trading anybody and making this team better. And obviously seismic changes there, so we love that. But Mitch Marner spoke to silence himself, and a couple different things. So he declined to answer if he sees himself being a Maple Leaf next season. He also declined answering if he's willing to negotiate in season. He says he's focused on hockey and winning games. We do have an interesting quote surrounding the trade, I guess him rejecting the trade request. Darius, this is an interesting one. There's a lot to go over here, but fans have they're starting to lose a little bit as it pertains to Mitch Marner.
I have to say, first of all, since Brad Treliving's got here, I like a lot of the moves that he's made. Has he made some mistakes? Absolutely. Every GM does. But I like his transparency. I like the fact that he knows what's wrong with the team. And I like the fact that he's very active in trying to fix those things. And he's trying to always better the team. And he saw a situation here and an opportunity where they could have re-signed Mikko Rantanen. They could have traded for him. And in return, obviously, it's Mitch Marner, who they don't know what's going to happen with Mitch Marner. And I think, the fact that all of this went down and this went down. This happened on Friday. We know for a fact that this was the case. The fact that this happened, leads me to believe that they're not too confident in their ability to be able to re-sign Mitch Marner in the offseason. I think they feel like he's going to leave. And everything that he's been saying is the right things. I'm not going to comment on this. I want to be a Toronto Maple Leaf, all of that. But like I mentioned in a video yesterday, I don't think I'm going to believe anything that Mitch Marner says anymore. I don't care what anyone says. I care what they do, right? Actions speak louder than words, and all of his actions lend me to believe that he's going to leave this summer, that it's going to be almost like a John Tavares 2.0 for the New York Islanders, right? That type of situation where, maybe they could have potentially got something for him and he's going to walk anyway. It's going to be very interesting. I do think like deep down he still wants to be a Toronto Maple Leaf, but I also think that he wants the most money possible. And if he's going to get that on the open market from another team, whether they're American or what have you, I think he's going to go after that. So it's going to be very interesting this offseason, especially with this playoff run. If he plays well, then obviously the Leafs have a great incentive to try and re-sign him. But, we haven't seen that yet in the playoffs for the Leafs.
Yeah, it obviously depends a lot on their playoff success. The fact that Brad Treliving was willing to even ask him, I feel like that's something Kyle Dubas probably wouldn't have done. Simply, at the end of the day, Mitch Marner has his no-move clause. He exercised that right, which is fine. And also, Brad Treliving, we still don't know for sure if they would have done the deal. I'm starting to lean towards they probably would have if it was just a swap on the table because they're confident in their ability to extend Mikko Rantanen. But, if that deal would have went through, that would have changed the landscape of this season heavily, going from the chemistry of that top line to now just a completely different top line, though. That being said, Nyes, Matthews, and Mikko Rantanen would have been an exciting first line to watch. But a couple other things. They asked him about him being asked to waive his no-move clause, and he said, I wasn't focused on it, but he also said that he had a feeling something might happen, and beyond that, he declined to answer any questions about his contract status or future, sticking to the stance he's had since the start of the season. So this is very interesting because he says he wasn't focused on it, which makes sense, but he also says that he had a feeling something might happen, which that in itself is interesting. Clearly, he must know that the front office isn't confident in their ability to re-sign him. The situation is just weird. Something is going on where it seems like Mitch Marner wants to be a Toronto Maple Leaf, but at the same time, Brad Treliving also wants him to be a Leaf, but it just doesn't seem like it's going to happen either way. So it's getting a little bit scary.
It sounds like he wants to make more than Austin Matthews. That's kind of what it sounds like to me. I'm trying to read between the lines here because obviously everything that's coming out the last couple of days, it's from both parties. It's from Mitch Marner's camp, and I think it's from the organization because I think the organization is kind of fed up. They're like, we're offering you exactly what Rantanen got. We're offering you, a fair amount for the player that you are, and you haven't accepted it yet. And it doesn't sound like you're going to accept it till the summer. And that's a problem for the organization because, obviously they tried to sign him before the season started. And you never want one of your top stars to go into free agency and test the market, right? That's not ideal. So I think both sides are pretty fed up with each other. It's a pretty crazy situation, a weird one. I feel like they're both negotiating through the media at this point, especially over the last 24 hours or so. So it's getting very interesting, and I just wonder what he's thinking, Mitch Marner, because obviously his agents are handling some stuff. I'm sure deep down, like I said, he wants to be a Toronto Maple Leaf, but for the right dollar amount, right? We also have to keep in mind the cap is going up a lot, but it sounds like the Leafs have an internal cap all of a sudden, right? Because the last couple of years they were giving the star players everything that they wanted, but it sounds like they have that. Nobody can really make more than Austin Matthews until his contract has expired. So that's something to keep in mind too. Mitch Marner wants the most money possible, so he's going to probably test the market. And his agent is notorious for doing that. Most of his clients will test the open market. Sam Bennett, another Darren Ferris client, is going to test the market as well. So we have to keep that in mind. One last thing I wanted to say before we move on a bit too is, this organization, I feel like, has given Mitch Marner a lot. And yes, he's the leading scorer for them in this little era in the playoffs. But after game two, I find that he kind of goes away and he kind of disappears a little bit when they need him the most. And again, I think a lot of fans see it that way too. This organization has given him a lot. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And I feel like, especially when Kyle Dubas was here, the organization bent over backwards for not just him, but the other guys too. And I have to say, through the negotiations, William Nylander was very quiet. His camp was very quiet. They handled that very quietly. He got the dollar amount that he was happy with. Same with Austin Matthews. This has always been messy.
Yeah, you can see this here from Luke. The Maple Leafs made it clear they wanted to resign Mitch Marner while previously expressed a desire to stay. He didn't reaffirm that on Saturday when given the chance. Despite having the best season of his career, he's reportedly shown little interest in serious extension talks. And you think back to, this has been a bunch of different things. They asked him, does he envision being a Leaf next season? I'm not going to get into contract stuff. I'm very grateful, and I've loved my time being a Leaf. That's how we'll leave it with you guys. So his stance has completely changed there. And Jonas Siegel dropped a very interesting article today, I'll say, and he says the challenges of dealing with Darren Ferris should not have been a surprise. Shanahan was there as Marner's second NHL contract was being negotiated, and obviously got a great deal. Took the front office, then led by Dubas and Shanahan, backing down a day into training camp for a deal to get done. In hindsight, the Leafs probably should have learned something about Marner and all that as well. He was willing to play hardball. He was going to maximize his earnings. That hometown discounts weren't going to be a thing for him. So at the end of the day, it is what it is, but this is a new territory for Marner to confront with only NHL teams ever known. Asked if he considered leaving. He basically said yes, he would consider leaving. And we only have 20 games left in the season. I want to play with this team, which obviously because he's under contract. So
Right.
it is I think fans are pretty fed up with it. At the end of the day, it's his right to do all this. He's not doing anything super bad. However, he's also not doing anything to earn himself PR, some positive PR there. So it's going to be interesting as we count down the games now because the playoffs are a month and a bit away, a month and a half away.
Definitely. And I mean, there's a lot of talk, and even in that article about a hometown discount, a lot of people talk about it and how there's, maybe guys who are not superstars that come back and sign here and they sign for a little bit less because they want to play here, like Mark Giordano, for example. And there's a couple other guys, right? Maybe not the best example, but that's one guy, right? John Tavares, he was offered 13 million by a couple other teams and he signed here for 11 million, right? Because he wanted to play and be a Toronto Maple Leaf. He could have been making $2 million more. And I know he was still making a lot of money, but those are the type of things, right? How badly do you want to be a Toronto Maple Leaf? If you're leaving $2 million or $3 million on the table, like how badly do you want to play for the Leafs? If it's over $3 million, then that's telling us a lot, I think. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens because, again, everything, it doesn't matter. We can read all of this, both sides can try and negotiate through the media, all of that. And I'm sure if more comes out, we're going to cover it. That's for sure. But it all depends on how this player performs this year in the playoffs. That's it.
Yep, and if not, then they'll probably let him walk. So it might make their decision easier if they get eliminated early. But that'll wrap it up. Let us know down below what your thoughts are. It's not what we were expecting necessarily, but it's the reality. We'll keep you up to date.